Hello, this is Catherine, Executive Communications for 3D BLM. If you've ever wanted to start and run your own personal business, this is the expert source of information from experts you need, whether you create a startup, acquisition or franchise. The 3D Business Launch Model, created by Gene H. Irwin, covers all aspects of developing and running your own home-based business. He is your personal mentor in developing any type of business. This podcast will greatly add to your understanding of all matters relating to your own home-based business.
Thanks, Catherine. Hello, friend. This is Gene Irwin, founder of the 3D Business Launch Model. In this particular podcast, we're going to talk to you about exactly what business do you want and give you examples of self-employed businesses, home-based businesses in this podcast 2B. Let's get started. Exactly what business do you want? That is one of the biggest questions people face when they decide they want to have a home-based business or a self-employed business. The purpose of this podcast series is to help you understand which of those might be the best fit for you. In this particular podcast, we're going to discuss over 100 different company business opportunities. So let's take a look at them. As we begin to do that, help you to understand what business do you want, we want to give you a notice, and here we go. The ownership of copyright materials referenced in this material are the copyright and ownership of the companies so referenced. See their website for details. Global Funding or Gene H. Irwin are not responsible for the accuracy or content of referenced companies or products. This particular podcast will focus directly on self-employed businesses and home-based businesses that you can start and run right out of your own home. Here's the approach we're going to take on helping you to understand the various companies and opportunities that might be available to you and what types of businesses might be of interest to you. On the left side, you'll notice in this particular screen, there are approximately 10 different businesses that you can have at your home. They're all alphabetized, so I'm just going to go through those very quickly. Then in the next slide, next information, I'm going to provide you details of the ones I think might be most palatable for you to give you the best opportunity to be successful in your home. Here we go. Some of the self-employed businesses include being a senior accountant, animal care or a trainer, architect, artist, baker, bellhop at a resort or seasonal businesses, a blogger, a bookkeeper, a bouncer, or a bus driver, and finally, business consultant. Let's go into some of those in detail. The ones that I chose arbitrarily are the following: accountant, architect, bus driver, and business consultant. To be a senior accountant, you'll make approximately $45 to $75 an hour. You need a Bachelor of Science degree and something called an accounting degree. And you need to be licensed by the state in most cases. And you need to have an industry experience. So to start this business out of your home, you're going to need somewhere between 5 and 10 years of experience. The next one I recommend is something called an architect. An architect will make approximately $76,000 a year with a BS and an MS recommended, and something called architectural studies. And we also recommend that you probably have to have a state license, and you'll need at least 3 years internship to start this business out of your home. The third business opportunity in this portion of our broadcast includes being a bus driver or a preschool driver. The income is fairly low at $20 to $30 an hour. You'll need at least a high school education, a driver's license, driver's screening by the state, and 2 to 4 years of good driving records. And finally, this particular portion of the broadcast talks about being a business consultant. Since this is a particular business that I'm currently in, that I began approximately 1978, and then worked for other companies on a full-time basis during that interim, it's important to understand that being self-employed and being a business consultant requires the following kinds of things. The income range is approximately $81,000 to $100,000 a year. Your education needs to be at least a Bachelor of Science in the field that you choose, and you most likely will need to have certifications and licensing by the state. In my case, I have 11 different licenses. And you need approximately 10 to 30 years of experience to be a business consultant, so that you have the credentials and you also have the insight to help these smaller companies, whether they're $5,000 a year in revenue or over $100 million a year in revenue. Yes, those are the kinds of companies I work with. It's important to understand that you need to have credibility in every aspect of your career. To be a business consultant, you need multiple backgrounds. Mine include engineering, financial services, being a consultant in terms of mechanical engineering, nuclear engineering, thermodynamics, and something called financial resources relative to being a private investor. So those are some of the areas in terms of business consulting that I particularly use. The next group of business opportunities we look at for self-employed businesses include being a career counselor, a caregiver, a carpenter, a caterer, child care, city guide writer, cleaner of pools and facilities, computer SQL software, construction laborer, and a construction manager. Let's go into some of those in detail. The two on this list of companies I recommend is being a carpenter or being a construction laborer. Let's start with the carpenter. He's going to earn an average income, or she will, at $42,000 a year. At least a high school education is required, and you may have to have licensing in the state and city in which you reside. Most likely, you'll need at least an apprenticeship of 1 to 3 years in that particular field to understand exactly what is required of you. Sometimes to be a carpenter, you'll work for other small businesses for a while, doing things like cabinetry, cabinet makeup, and cabinet design. Those are kind of interesting areas. Or you might be involved in building homes, but you're going to have to be licensed underneath the general contractor. That means you're going to have a license from the state in terms of a construction, or in this case, a mechanical license. It's important that you do that. It's also important that you get liability insurance to cover you from accidents that may happen on the site or problems with your materials or workmanship. The second area is called a construction laborer. This person doesn't require an education other than high school, doesn't require licensing, and doesn't require an internship. And he or she will make approximately $20 an hour as a construction laborer working underneath somebody else's license and contract. As such, you'll gain the experience necessary to someday run your own construction crew, and you'll be able to learn several different types of trades. It could be sheetrock, it could be roofing, it could be underlayment, it could be dealing with carpets, it could be dealing with flooring. So there's a lot of ways you can go as a construction laborer. The next group of business opportunities include being a consultant, a copywriter, curriculum creator, customer service rep, dispatcher for fire, ambulance, and law, door-to-door sales, driver for Uber or Lyft, driver for UPS or the mail carrier, e-commerce seller, editor, education training, event planner, and executive assistant. Lots of different opportunities there. Let's go into some of those in detail. As I mentioned earlier about being a business consultant, being a consultant is no easy day at the beach. You must have industry experience, at least 5 to 20 years. Your income will be approximately $50 to $100 to $500 an hour. You'll have to have a Bachelor of Science, a Master of Science, and relative experiences in the fields that you've chosen to be a consultant of. And depending on the job in the state, you may need to have licenses, depending on which company you work with and which particular industry you're consulting for. Second, a dispatcher of fire, ambulance, and law is roughly an income of $15 to $30 an hour, high school education, no experience necessary, and no industry experience in terms of 5 to 20 years. You simply can be a dispatcher for firemen, ambulances, and law situation where you're sending out police and so forth, and you don't have to have more than a high school education. Third on this list is something called e-commerce seller. Your income may be approximately $33,000 a year. Again, no major education. It depends on the kind of jobs and state that you want to do. Perhaps you'll have arts, crafts, software, and so forth, but typically you won't be required to be licensed by the state, and you don't have to have industry experience. So a lot of people go into e-commerce to create podcasts and blogs and so forth to generate an income that way. That's not my focus. My focus is to create a product and service that goes directly to you, the consumer, of something called the 3D business launch model that helps you create and find and develop your own personal home-based and home-owned business. The next group we're going to look at include a farmer, farmer's market and direct sales, fashion consultant, filing, file clerk, reception, financial advisor, fitness instructor and a trainer, food delivery driver, food preparation and sales, food services manager, graphic designer, hairstylist, and a handyman. A lot of different businesses to choose from there. The ones that I'm going to focus on for this particular group of businesses at home include something called a graphic designer. That person will make about $41,000 a year. He needs to have, or she needs to have, a Bachelor of Science and typically something called Adobe Suite courses. You'll need to know and understand how to create using software. It doesn't require direct industry experience, but it's best if you do have licenses in that area. And finally, as a handyman, you're going to have a very low income simply because there isn't a great need that's visible for being a handyman. So you go around from door to door, basically, looking for people who need services at their home or their business, a high school education, usually don't require licenses, and you need some industry experience so you know what you're doing, so you can hang a door, so you can create a window, so you can help take care of the flooring and some of the other things that do not require licensing, like an electrician or a plumber. So those are the two that I chose out of this group. Keep in mind, there are a lot of different opportunities here. Let me just point out one interesting one. On this list is also a hairstylist. Typically, in the state that you live in, you need a state license to be a hairstylist because you're dealing with somebody's personal self. And as such, there's a lot of requirements that go into it. In fact, the license costs anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 hours before you're licensed to be a hairstylist in that state. The income's going to be fairly low, less than $30,000. But all you need is a high school education, your state license, and get your training done to get that state license. Then you can do hairstyling right out of your home. The next group of home-based businesses include an IT developer, landscaper, lawn care pro, in fact signing up for GreenPal as an associate, leads generation, life coach, lifeguard for the summer, makeup artist, management analyst, massage therapist, mechanic, music distribution and disc jockey, and NetSuite administrator. The businesses I chose out of that last group is IT developer. Income's going to be around $80,000 a year, but you're going to have to Bachelor of Science and MS certificates. You'll also have certifications from the various softwares that you're capable of working on, and you're going to have industry experience anywhere from 2 to 10 years. A lawn care pro, Genie Pal, earns up to $55 an hour, if you can believe that. No education, no prior experience, but you'll be basically Uber for lawn care. You work for a company, they send you out to do a job, you come back, you get paid. Pretty simple. And you don't require an education, and you don't require certifications from the state. The third group on this list of companies includes something being a lifeguard. Now, my daughter was a lifeguard, and I thought that was kind of interesting for her to do that in the summer here in Arizona. And the income, believe it or not, is $20 to $40 an hour. Blew me away. High school education in the summer, seasonal job. No major certifications required from the state, but you need some industry experience. In other words, you need to know how to swim. And, of course, you need certifications in CPR, things of that nature. The next group of industries including being a nursing assistant, an online instructor, personal trainer, phone survey or an operator, photographer, private music teacher, project management, and property manager. Of this last group, I'm going to focus on private trainer, personal trainer, and I'm going to focus on a private music teacher. The personal trainer will earn around $30,000 a year, needs a high school education, isn't required to be licensed by the state in most cases, and not necessarily do you have to have industry experience. But if you're going to be a personal trainer, most likely you need to know some things about physiology and muscles and things of that nature. So there's going to be some education, at least on the job. You'll probably do an internship first before you can be certified as a personal trainer. A lot of people do that, both men and women. You've seen those various programs. First they came out with DVRs, what do they call those things? A VCR product, then it became CDs, and now everything's done online. The next group of this list that I pulled out is a private music teacher. Income's going to be around $41,000 a year. You do not need a Bachelor of Science or MS degree. You need some experience in terms of knowing music and teaching and so forth, but it's typically not licensed by the state. Therefore, you can be a private music teacher in your home, have people come to you, and you'll need to understand the mechanics of how to teach that music, whether it's a organ or whether it's a piano or whether it's some type of a reed instrument or a brass instrument. You'll need to know how that all works. And you set your own hours, you set your own costs per hour. So you can easily look online and find out from other individuals around your area what they're charging for those services. Shouldn't be difficult at all to find out what your competition are doing, and then duplicate that and do a better job of providing service, quality, and humor into your relationship with your students. The next group, retail and part-time retail, real estate agent, rideshare driver, sales representative, seamstress and sewing, security and security at events, senior care, and sign language interpreting. Quite a different mix of opportunities to work out of your home. The ones I chose out of that group are real estate agent, seamstress, and senior care. Let's start with the real estate agent. Surprisingly, in most cases, the average income for a real estate agent is going to be around $36,000 a year. He doesn't necessarily need a high school education or a bachelor education from a university or college, but that person will need to have a state real estate license. You cannot get around it. Don't even try. Real estate agent is, for lack of better words, a dime a dozen. You look at MLS, multiple listing services, and so forth. You're going to find a listing at a real estate broker's office of 15 to 20 different real estate agents in there, all trying to sell the same product, all trying to diversify and find ways and creative ways to find people who want to buy or people who want to sell their house. The goal here is to do a better job than everybody in your office and everybody in the offices around you. If you go online and go to the Secretary of State, you can probably find out very quickly how many licensed real estate agents there are in your state. You may be astounded to find there's 30,000, maybe more. A seamstress and sewing. Income's going to be $15 to $30 an hour. You don't necessarily need the experience, except you need to know how to sew and do a very good job of that. Have your own equipment and do so. And no requirements from the state, but you need industry experience. An interesting side note is my sister-in-law has done that for 50 years. Extremely talented woman, and has been doing it for so long that she just literally has tons and tons and tons of clients that turn to her to solve all their problems, including new outfits, old outfits with repairs and so forth. She has a business coming out of her garage. I'm not kidding. She just has a ton of work to do every week, and it's good for her. It's a income situation she'll always have available if she wants to. As long as her fingers and the sewing machine works, she'll have a great job. And the last group of people I want to talk about, a little slower, I want to talk to you about senior care. Senior care in this country is going to be a boon. I am not kidding. You'll make $40 to $90 an hour. Listen very carefully. That's $80 to more than $160,000 a year in income once you get going. And once you get your clientele built up, you'll need a Bachelor of Science in most cases, or at least certifications in your senior care. You may need to be licensed by the state in some instances, but you'll have to have industry experience. So go online, look up senior care, and see if you can't work directly for a company for a while until you get your experience underneath your belt. And then you can go out on your own and hang up your own shingle, as we call it, when you're self-employed. But senior care is going to be a big, big, big opportunity for you. Take a look at it if that's of interest to you. The last group that I arbitrarily put together for something called self-employed businesses out of your home include a research assistant, a roofer, social media specialist, software developer, TaskRabbit, teaching assistant, transcriptionist, and a translator. Let's take a look at those and some of those in detail. I've chosen 4 different occupations on this particular group of list of businesses at home, and then we'll be done on this portion of the podcast. Number 1 is a waiter, waitress, or a server. Income's going to be fairly low at $15 an hour, but you only need a high school education or less, and you don't need to have any skills other than you need to follow instructions from your employer, and you don't need any industry experience. That's why you see so many new people looking for a job become a waiter, a waitress, or a server. Next on the list is something called a warehouse worker. Again, a low-income job, high school education in most cases, but you don't need any further skills and you don't need licenses from the state. But they often need warehouse workers to learn how to take care of the supplies and resources that go into a company. Typically, it's going to be moving a lot of boxes and moving a lot of parts and things of this nature. And eventually, they'll want you to learn how to run a skid steer. Well, that's a big piece of equipment that has forklift on it. And that, in fact, was what we used to call it, was a forklift. But now they call it a skid steer. And the purpose of that is to lift the very heavy pallets high up in the air. It's a job which requires you to pay attention. It's a job which requires you to take advantage of the experiences that you can learn, working your way up in somebody's business. And a warehouse worker, believe it or not, when you're a young person, is a very good way to do that. Is something called WordPress developer. This is a person who writes and creates pages that go on to a website. A WordPress developer can earn $40 to $50 an hour, typically needs at least a high school education, maybe a bachelor's degree, but there are no license requirements from the state. But you need to develop WordPress for websites, so you'll need to understand how to create that software. Fairly easy to do. WordPress is a fairly non-technical product that you can learn quickly, and you can provide those services to all sorts of web page developers all over the world. You don't need to work just in your local area. You can reach out, something called Fiverr, Fiverr. Fiverr is a way to hang up your shingle, to find your price and show your wares, and do it very quickly. And you can be a business this afternoon. I'm not kidding. And as I said, you don't need a state license to do that because you're providing a service. Finally, what I want to talk to you about is writing, to be a journalist or to create articles. If you know how to write, you can make an income of $20 to $30 an hour. You need at least a high school education, perhaps in some cases certifications or a Bachelor of Science. Certifications of 4 to 6 years in your business, and you can create and clean your tops by working for newspapers, by working for local magazines, and writing and so forth. This is a long-term job opportunity, a long-term business, because writers and journalists and articles are always in high demand. But you need to learn how to create, and you need to take the time to do it right. Well, folks, we've showed you several detailed analysis of companies, opportunities, and businesses that you can start in your home to be a home-based, self-employed business. In a few minutes, I want to talk to you about how to expand those concepts, how to take a look at some very successful businesses from the franchise world, and how to think about applying that in your home-based, self-employed business. That's where, after all, most self-employed businesses created. First, we're in the home, or perhaps the garage. You know that. You know that Microsoft started in the garage. Most fantastic businesses and companies started out of a basement or out of a garage. So you can do the same thing. I want to give you some experiences and help you understand how to do that to help you succeed in your own home-based business. As I mentioned, I want you to understand how to do this. So here we go. Here is wisdom. If someone has successfully done what it is you want to do for your own home-based business, doesn't it make sense to discover what they did well and what issues to avoid in your new business? Sure it does. That's what I thought. I'm going to give you about an hour's worth of reference ideas from current and recent franchise markets, which grew from their own self-employment home-based businesses to where they are today. You might be surprised at the types of businesses and markets they are addressing, which may or may not be exactly what you want to learn. Keep in mind, just because they want between $10,000 and $150,000 to start a franchise with them doesn't mean that's what your initial cost is going to be. You don't have to have the overhead that they're dealing with right now, and you can have me and other experts to help you now at the front end of your business. All the best, Gene H. Irwin. So what we're going to do now, folks, is talk about what business do you want and look at some franchises under $50,000. This is going to be our next podcast to see. It'll be coming up here shortly, the next few days or a week, and we're going to complete that in such a way that you can understand exactly what these franchises are doing. I'm going to give you the references. I'm going to give you great detail in what each franchise is doing, how much it costs them to operate, what kind of business they have, what kind of success they have, and then I'm going to give you the reference so you can go online and do the research yourself. Remember what I said earlier? I'll do some homework, you do some homework, and we'll find the best opportunity for you, and together we'll make this successful for you. We'll do everything we can to help you succeed. That's my promise to you. This is Gene Irwin, founder of the 3D Business Launch Model, hoping that you have a great evening, and I want you to see the rest of this. If you're online, I want you to see the rest of this information before you hang up or click off or what it is that you do. And we want you to succeed In the meantime, thank you for listening to the podcast. This is Gene Irwin. My phone number is 1-800-750-8767. Call us anytime. Or you can send us an email atghigfac@aol.com. We'd be glad to respond to you. Here are the examples I wanted to show you to you briefly from the franchise opportunities under $50,000. The sequence for all of these franchise disclosures, including the name of the company at the top, the cash required, the net worth required, the total startup investment required, the year that they founded, the year that they began franchising, and the number of units in the United States and in Canada. The source for this information for the franchises comes from something called the franchisebusinessreview.com. Look them up. You'll be glad that you did. You get all the details you need necessarily based on the type of business you're looking for and the income that you want to make and the requirements to get set up in that particular business. You'll be glad that you did. This is Gene Irwin, the founder of the 3D Business Launch Model, helping you understand what business do you want. We've talked about self-employed businesses, home-based businesses, and the next podcast is talking about franchises under $50,000 and franchises under $100,000. We certainly hope that you enjoyed this detailed information, and we look forward to bringing you more quality information and instructions to you soon. But before I let you go, I've got to tell you this story. How many are there of you of what we call small businesses in the United States? Well, there's over 31.7 million. Most, if not all, were started just like you by self-employed people. In fact, if you ask each of the people who came across the oceans hundreds of years ago to America who left their family and friends behind, trust me when I tell you, not one of them said, "My fervent goal is to risk life and limb, be subjected to hardship and danger by traveling 4,500 miles to an unknown land, hoping that I can work for somebody else." This is Gene Irwin, the founder of the 3D Business Launch Model. We certainly hope you understand that being self-employed gives you more freedoms and opportunities than you have working for others. I realize we have to start working for others to get some experiences, but eventually you'll figure it out that trading in hours for dollars is not where your income should be. I've thrown a lot at you in this introduction podcast, which talks about the pitfalls of being self-employed. If you would, send us an email or give us a call so you'll have free access to several videos we've created which solve most of these problems for you and may help you determine which course of action may be the most beneficial to you and your family in your very own home-based business. This is Gene Irwin, the creator of A Successful and Profitable Business and creator of the 3D Business Launch Model. We look forward to talking to you. Anything we do to help you, give us a call. Send us an email at ghigfac@aol.com. Thanks for listening.